right, this is St. Thomas 005 math class, lesson 1, part number 9. And I'm going to talk about dividing fractions. And there's a trick or a mnemonic that I use that is hopefully helpful for you all. It's called KFC. And oddly enough, it has nothing to do with chickens and everything to do with how to process a division problem involving fractions. So we're going to keep the first fraction. We're going to flip the second fraction. And then we're going to change from division to multiplication. All right. So let me go ahead and we'll actually run through a couple of these, and hopefully it will make sense as we go. All right. So here I have my first fraction, which is 2/3. I'm just literally going to rewrite that. Nothing happens there. Now I'm going to flip my second one. So I'm going to have a 6/5 now, because this was 5/6. I'm flipping it over, turning it over. And now I'm changing my division to multiplication. All right. Now, again, you can go ahead and multiply through and then reduce, or you can reduce first and then multiply. My preference, and again, it's just my preference, is to go ahead and cancel as much as possible ahead of time so that my numbers remain relatively small. So if I take a look here, I have nothing I can do with this 2 and the 3, nothing I can do with the 2 and the 5. So that's just going to have to remain a 2. Now I have my 6 and my 3, I can cancel, right? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change up my color just so that it's easier to see this. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that 3 and that 6. This becomes a 1 and this becomes a 2. All right. Now I've got my 2 and my 5, nothing I can do there. That's as reduced as I can make it. So we're going to wind up having 2 times 2 over 1 times 5, which is going to become 4/5. All right. We're going to do that again with this particular problem. So I've got 9/11. That stays, that's my first fraction, so that stays exactly the same. And then I'm going to take my second fraction, I'm going to flip it over. So that's going to become 22/7 rather than 7/22. And now I'm changing this from division to multiplication. And again, I'm going to go ahead and cancel where I can. I'm going to make this as easy on myself as I possibly can. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel my 22 and my 11. This is going to become a 1. This becomes a 2. Now I've got 9 times 2 over 1 times 7, right? So it's going to become 18/7. And it's just fine. At this level, it's just fine to leave these as improper fractions. I'm just fine with that. So don't worry too much about whether or not you have to reduce those or not. All right, so I've got one more that I want to do, and let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to have a 7/8, and I'm dividing that by 1/4. So I'm going to do my KFC. I'm going to keep my 7/8. That's my first one. I'm going to flip my 1/4 to become a 4/1. And then I'm changing this to multiplication. Again, I like to cancel out where I can first. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I see that I have a 4 here and I have a 4 hiding in this 8, so I can cancel those out. So that becomes a 2. This becomes a 1. So I have 7 times 1 over 2 times 1, which of course is going to get me 7/2, or 7/2. All right, that should give you a pretty good idea of how to go ahead and multiply and divide fractions. I want to also start addressing what happens when we have fractions that we're adding or subtracting. This is where it starts getting really challenging. If I have something that they both have the same denominator, it's super easy, okay? If I have 3 over 5 plus 1 over 5, right? Those are both the same size pieces, right? They're both fifths. This is going to become a 4 over 5. The denominator does not get added, and it's a common denominator. So all we have to do is add my numerators together, and we're good. Same kind of deal if I was subtracting. If I had, I'm going to take the same numbers and just make it a subtraction here. So if I had 3 over 5 minus 1 over 5, right? This is going to become a 3 minus 1, which is a 2. And then my 5s, since those are the same denominator, that just comes along. That's just to the fifth, right? Or the fifth, 2/5 on the problem. So what happens though when we don't have a handy dandy common denominator? That's where things get a little more challenging, and that's part of the reason why I spent all that time going over finding common multiples, least common multiples. So let's go ahead and do a few of these. I am going to have, let's go ahead with a 3 over 5 plus a 1 over 4. All right, if you think about it, 4 is just 2 times 2. There's no 2's over here. There's no 5's over here. So the best I'm going to come up with is going to be a 20. I'm going to have a 5 times 4. So I'm going to go ahead and say 3 over 5. And now I'm going to have to multiply by a 1, but it's going to be a 1 in disguise. It's going to be a 4 over 4, right? I can multiply any number by 1 and it's still that same number, all right? And that's really key to this trick, because my 4 over 4 is nothing more than a 1. Doesn't look like a 1, looks like a 4 over 4, but that's really just a 1. Now I can go ahead and I can say my 1 over 4 here, and I'm going to multiply that by a 5 over 5, right? I need both of those to become the common denominator of 20. And that will work now. I have a 5 times 4 and a 4 times 5. Those are both going to get me to 20. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do my multiplication, and then I'm going to add, all right? So in this case, I'm going to have a 12 plus a 5, right? There's my 12, my 3 times 4, and 1 times 5 is going to get me my 5. And then this is all going to be over 20. So when I get through adding this up, it's going to be 17 over 20. All right, I'm going to go ahead and let's grab another one. This one will work. So if I have, let me change the color so it's a little clearer that we're doing something different. All right, so if I have 1/2 and I'm subtracting 1/3 from that, well, I don't have a common denominator. I have to get them to a common denominator before I can do anything. So I have a 2 here, which is prime, a 3 here, which is prime. The best I'm going to be able to do is come up with a 6 as a denominator. So with that in mind, I'm going to rewrite my 1/2. And now I'm going to multiply that by a 3 over 3, right? Remember, I need a 6 in my denominator. And in order to do that, I'm going to multiply it by 1, but it's going to have the format of a 3 over 3. Now I'm going to take my 1/3, and I'm going to multiply that by 2 over 2, right? Because I still need to get to that 6th, all right? I need that to become a 6th in the denominator. So here I'm going to have a 3, right? Because 1 times 3 is 3, minus 1 times 2 is a 2, and then that's going to be all over 6. So that's going to get me a 1 over 6. All right, so what happens if we start getting more and more creative here? All right, let's take a look at what happens if I have some multiplication happening and I have a subtraction going on. So in this case, let's go ahead with, let me do a blue this time around. Make it clear that we're doing something different. All right, so here I'm going to have a 3 over 4 multiplying a 6 over 9 minus 5 over 8 times 4 over 10. Now there's a lot of things we could do here. I'm going to say let's start with the ones that we can see pretty readily. Okay? And I'm going to just, well, actually let me just rewrite these problems because this is going to start taking up a little bit of space. All right, so here I'm going to have my 6 and my 9. I'm going to cancel out some 3's. So I'm going to have my 3 over 4 times, and then this is going to become a 2 over 3 minus, I'm going to have a 5/8 and a 4 over 10. Well, I could cancel out my 8's or my 4's out of my 8 and my 4, or I can cancel, and I could cancel out my 5 out of my 10. Or I could try just reducing that and then figuring out later on that I need to reduce some more. So let's go ahead and I'm going to cancel out my 4's and then my 5's. So I'm going to have 5 divided by, my 5 and my 10 are going to cancel out. So that's going to become a 1 times, and then my denominator here is going to be a 2, right? Because I've canceled my 5 and my 10. And here I'm going to have my 4 and my 8. So that's going to become a 2 and a 1. All right. So far I've got a fair amount taken care of. I still have one more thing I see that I can cancel. I have a 3 and a 3 here. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that out. I'm going to have a 1 over 4 times 2 over 1 minus 1 over 2 times 1 over 2. All right, so let's take and we'll just do each of those pieces, right? I'm going to do my multiplication first, and then I'm going to do my subtraction. So 1 times 2 over 4 times 1, and then I'm going to have my subtraction of 1 times 1 all over 2 times 2. So this becomes a 2 over 4, right? This becomes a 2 over 4 here, minus 1 over 4. So my answer here is going to be a 1 over 4. And yes, this was fairly detailed, and this was a slightly longer video, but hopefully this is helpful for you to be able to resolve some of this stuff.